Hello YouTubers, this is Rav and Jack from RJ Boxing S&C and we've got a new video for you today.
So yeah, we've got another breakdown on a big fight coming up in the boxing world. You can check out our recent breakdown on Spence versus Crawford. Today is for a fight that's not quite as technical as that, so it shouldn't take anywhere near as long, but an exciting fight nonetheless. It's Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz coming up on August the 5th. It's an interesting one because it's an MMA fighter coming into boxing to take on, we'll call him a boxer, Jake Paul, because he is the more experienced boxer here. So yeah, we're going to do a little breakdown and say how each fighter is going to use their strengths and weaknesses, how they're going to work against each other and the tactics they got to use. It's a good one because I've been a boxer for years. Rav is kind of new to boxing, coming from a different fighting background, so he can explain it from Nate Diaz's point of view, and I can try and give some tips on how Jake Paul, the boxer, has got to stick to the sweets.
And I'm going to say my points about Nate Diaz. As he comes from an MMA background, he's got a disadvantage against Jake Paul. The thing is, he's going to be more square on. Obviously it's a boxing fight, so he's not going to be square on. He's going to be in a boxing stance, but there is going to come to a point where he's going to find it hard to get rotation and let the shots go. So I feel that he's going to have to come in close to win the fight, to get the win. In this fight, Nate Diaz ain't going to be as natural with his boxing technique as Jake Paul. His head movement's not going to be as good, and his hand speed ain't going to be quick because of rotation, because he's used to being in a square on stance in MMA. For Nate Diaz to get this win, I feel that he's going to have to come in close and rough him up. It's going to be a war. That's what he's going to have to do. Just get in tight and just let the shots go to get the win.
So yeah, Rav's given Nate Diaz his tactics to win. Like he said, it's keep it simple for Nate Diaz. You're not going to be the better boxer here. You haven't got anywhere near as much boxing experience. Jake Paul's been training boxing constantly for the last 5 or so years. So Nate Diaz really does just have to turn it into a war, try and rough Jake Paul up and break his heart. It's a 10-rounder, Jake Paul's first 10-rounder. Now Jake Paul has obviously got to be aware of this. He's going to be aware of this. He's not as stupid as he likes to make out, Jake Paul. He's very dedicated to the boxing game. So he knows here Nate Diaz is going to be coming in, just swinging bombs, trying to get on him and rough him up. So what does Jake Paul have to do? He obviously has to stay calm, stay collected, and just keep the shots long. It's as simple as that. As Nate Diaz tries to come in, if you come towards me, step back, long shots, do not get involved, do not get up close and start having a wild scrap with Nate Diaz, because that will obviously be a very tough, long night for him. So yeah, main shots obviously to throw if you're trying to stick to slick, sweet boxing, is just throw the jab as Diaz comes in. Obviously Nate Diaz is going to be a wild southpaw. He isn't going to have the same boxing ability as a natural southpaw would have. What's the best shot to throw against a southpaw to really hurt him coming in? A right hand. What's Jake Paul's best shot? A right hand. So if he can stay composed here as Diaz comes in all wild and rough, come with a right hand straight down the middle and try to take him out. Jake Paul does have a lot of power in that right hand, so if it does land clean. So another thing, as this is a 10-rounder, Jake Paul, I know he's learning the boxing game. He gets quite excited with his style sometimes. You'll see him, he tries to be a bit like Muhammad Ali. He bats around, he'll swing wild bombs. I don't think that's what he should be doing here against Nate Diaz. If he finds his range early and thinks he can do that, but Nate Diaz isn't going to be quite as erratic and easy to hit as he thinks, especially in the early stages when they're still quite sharp. So if I'm Jake Paul, I'm not trying to bounce around, throwing wild shots. If you've seen before, he throws the right hand and he looks at the floor. Nate Diaz is a guy who's just going to throw any punch he sees. So when Jake Paul's like this, he could come with an uppercut, he could come with a hook, he could catch Jake Paul with anything when he's wide open like that. Jake Paul has got to be here. He's got to be looking at his opponent all the time. Hands up, just neat, sharp shots. You can keep him long to the body as well. Don't come wild to the body like this, like we saw him against Tommy Fury. Keep him straight to the body, keep him sharp and just nice and crisp to the body without going too wild with it. And when it comes to the footwork, don't bounce around too much like he was against Tommy Fury. It's going to be a 10-rounder this one. Nate Diaz is going to make it rough and tough. You don't want to be wasting loads of energy. So instead of bouncing around loads, just step to the side as Diaz comes at you, throw a shot. You can do it the other way too. You can step this way, throw the shot, and yeah, just don't bounce around and waste too much energy in this one, because one thing it is going to be with Nate Diaz is a long, tough night You don't want to be wasting energy. You want to be nice and composed, slick shots, ones, twos, no wasting combinations. And yeah, that's it. The way for Jake Paul to win this fight is simple boxing. It's a boxer versus a brawler. You get dragged into the brawler's fight, you start trying to show off, doing too much wild shit, you're going to get caught out, and it's going to be a difficult night for him. He can make this an easy night, and he could find the knockout at some point if he just keeps his eyes on his opponent, keeps his technique nice and crisp, and just sticks to the simple shots that we know he can throw. Land that right hand, I'm going to say he'll land that he'll land it a lot throughout, but I mean he'll land the knockout blow, I'm going to say in round 6. I think Diaz will be tired by this time. I think he'll be getting wild and erratic, and we'll see Jake Paul take him out of the right hand in round 6. I think Diaz will get up, and then it'll be a nice combination to finish him off.
Right, in this fight, I think it's going to be upset. I think Nate Diaz is going to do it. I think he's got better conditioning because he does a lot of triathlons and things like that. And he's been training with Andre Ward as a sparring, so I think he's going to get the upper hand because I think he's going to come in tight and just rough him up, come in close. Jake Paul ain't going to know what hit him.